friends. We are back for another week of Slightly Bad Girls of the Bible, flawed women loved by a flawless God. We are wrapping up almost this book that we've done together. If you've been following us for a couple of weeks, I've been kind of posing the question out there, what should the next book be that we do in our book club? And so I think the consensus that I've received from a lot of people is that we should, sorry, I'm turning the volume down on my iPad, so you're not hearing me talk to you on there and then hearing me on here too. That would be really weird. But I hope everybody's doing well tonight. If you're here, say hi. Mary, I see that you're watching. Hello, Mary. It was wonderful to see you today. I didn't get to talk to you too much today. We were busy at the Salvation Army. Christmas applications and emergency food and, gosh, 1.5 million other things it feels like. But I am glad that it is Wednesday night because that means I get to be with each and every one of you. So I'm excited. But I just wanted to give you a little sneak peek, a little preview. The next book, hey Pat, good to see you. I didn't get to talk to Pat very much today either. We just kind of like talked to each other in passing about business all day today. It was like not one of those days where we could just, you know, have regular conversation. I hate that. I hate those days. They always make me feel super, super drained. And then I had to go to the doctor today. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, gentlemen too, I don't want to exclude the gentlemen. Man, I hate going to the doctor, especially, I say at my age, like, it was, like, okay when you're, you know, in your 20s and whatever, and then you're in your 30s, and then suddenly, like, you have all these problems. Hi, stranger. Love that. But I had to go to the doctor today. All good news, so that's good. I had my annual physical, well, I guess my tri-annual physical every 3 years. I don't know if that's, triannual. In the Salvation Army, we have to get a physical every 3 years. So I had my physical, and I am doing pretty good. So that's great. Hey, Aunt Kay, I just saw that you're watching. Good to see you. How are you doing? If you're actually going to see the feed, how are you? I miss everybody. I miss my family. I miss my family a lot. I feel like somehow during COVID-19, your family that does not live closely to you or you haven't seen in a while, they feel so much further away. I hate that feeling. That's the worst. But we are wrapping up Slightly Bad Girls of the Bible. And hey, Teresa, good to see you. I'm so glad that I got to meet you. I got to meet you face to face. That's so awesome that I can now put a face to a name. And when you're commenting on here, I'm like, I know who this is. That's awesome. Thanks for joining us last week. And I'm so glad that you're joining us this week. That's so great. So the next book that we're going to be doing is going to be The Really Bad Girls of the Bible. We're going to finish out this series by Liz Curtis Higgs. I think that's only fitting because we talked about the bad girls, we talked about the slightly bad girls, and I think we should really wrap this up with the worst of the worst, the really bad girls of the Bible. And I don't want that to discourage any gentlemen that might be watching. Just because this book is centered on women does not mean that this is a study that is only focused for women. Men can join this study, so if you guys have a significant other at home or somebody that you think would really enjoy just having this discussion, I actually think it might be interesting to include some gentlemen in this discussion. So here's my question that I want to ask you. For the really bad girls of the Bible, obviously, barring that my husband and I can swing it with having 3 kids, we might have to maybe meet at a different time. I don't know, or pre-record. Don't you think it would be interesting to have a man's perspective on some of these ladies we're going to talk about? I wonder if I could get my husband to either, maybe not, he might not be able to join the live feed with like sitting next to me, but he might be able to join like live commenting. So I don't know, what's your opinion? Do you think that would be fun? I think it would be a blast. I don't know if I can get Brad to do it, but I think it would be fun. Give me just a second here because I'm going to adjust this camera because it is almost falling out of the stand, and that would be bad news for everyone. If in the middle of this, the whole camera falls. And let's see if that fixed it. Okay, there we go. Yay! Now the camera's not going to fall in the little Bible study. I'll be sitting here talking, and then all of a sudden you'll just see black. Or you'll see the ceiling, I guess. But at any rate, so we are going to be, as I'm saying, we're going to be doing the really bad girls of the Bible. So, oh, yes, perfect. Thank you, Teresa. I'm so glad that you're on board with that. That's awesome. Or if you guys, if any of your gentlemen want to join this conversation, send them this link. Invite them to watch this. And I would love to get a gentleman's perspective on some of this stuff. I think it would be great. I think it would be fantastic. So the Really Bad Girls of the Bible. If you would like your own copy, the Salvation Army will provide copies. You just need to let me know in the comments tonight. Say, send me a copy, or send me a private message. You can click on my name. When you look at the video, the replay of the video, it'll say posted by Rachel Moore. If you click on that, it'll take you to my private Facebook page. You can send me a message through there. Send me a message through the Facebook page for the Salvation Army. Let me know that you need a book, and send me your address, because I will order them directly from the distributor and I'll have it mailed to your house. If you're a person who I see on a regular basis, whether I see you volunteering or I see you at the office or at church on Sundays, I will give you your book in person. But if you're maybe a person that I don't get to see as often, let me know. Send me your address. Send me your, thank you, Mary. I'm going to send you a copy. I just saw your comment. I'll send you a copy. And if you need a copy, let me know, because I will provide copies for anybody that wants them. I get them from a distributor very, very cheap. And one for Pat, got it. So one for Mary, one for Pat. Yes, Teresa, I can get you a copy. Teresa, if you send me a message through the Facebook page, or I guess I know where to get your address. I think you know what I'm saying, but I know where to get your address. And I can mail you a copy. I will make sure that anybody who wants a copy gets mailed a copy, so that when we start in just 2 weeks, so we'll have this week where we finish up Rachel's story. Next week, where we're going to wrap up the book and have a good discussion on what we learned from it, or lessons that we're taking away, or things that we want to try to apply to our own life. We're going to do that next week. Then we will have a week off, and then we will start the Really Bad Girls of the Bible. Okay? That week off is not going to be a week that we're not having a study. We're going to be live. I'm going to kind of just do like an introduction to the book. Because I already have the copy of the Really Bad Girls, but it might take like a week and a half to get there to you. So from where I order them from. So we'll do this week, wrap it up. Next week we have our conclusion week, and then we'll do an intro week before we actually get our books. And I'll make sure that everybody has our books before we dive in. And if you don't have the book, always grab your Bible, because this author is fantastic, and she's wonderful, and she writes really phenomenal things. But this is where the truth of the Word of God is, okay? So this never replaces this over here, okay? So I can also let you know, this is maybe a scripture or a chapter of the Bible you want to read ahead of time, so that you can kind of, and I would encourage you to do that as well, because the author will always tell you, what chapters from the Bible we're reading from, and I would encourage you to read them on your own, too, because there's so much that you can grasp for yourself. By reading God's Word. And I don't profess to be the world's best teacher, but I try to do my best to facilitate and us learn together. So let's get into it. If you do have your books, we're going to be picking up on page 195, which is this whole interaction between Rachel and Jacob, right? Rachel's had it up to her limit. We talked a lot about both Rachel and Leah, how their marriages with Jacob differ. You have Leah, who's completely unloved by Jacob, but really loved by God, and she has children abounding, right? She's a wonderful mother. She has that beautiful gift of motherhood. And then you have Rachel, who is desperately loved by Jacob, dearly loved, but feels far off from God because she can't have any children. She's barren. And we're kind of going to get into this whole kind of a glimpse into their marriage and how it is affecting both Jacob and Rachel as people, and also affecting Rachel's relationship with God. And that's kind of what I want to focus on today, is how the stresses of life, how both the good things and the bad things that happen in life really can influence, both in negative and positive ways, our relationship with God. So before we jump into this, I want to ask you a question, and I want some feedback, and hopefully we can make a good list here. So I want you to think in your mind of the ideal relationship, okay? So I'm not going to say the ideal marriage, because I know not all of us are married, and that's okay. But the ideal relationship, right? What you look for in a relationship. Start listing those things for me in the comments. What does an ideal relationship look like to you? And I'll give you a couple of mine while I'm waiting for your comments to come in. I think mutual respect is a really important one. Not one part of the relationship, party in the relationship being here and someone being here. I think it should be equals, right? Mutual respect. I think respecting each other's similarities and differences is really important, but I think just across the board, you have to have mutual respect. And I know that's kind of hard as we look at these. I struggle a little bit when I look at the relationships of the Bible, because to me they don't always seem to be built on mutual respect. Women were not treated with the same respect or the same value in biblical culture as I think we should be today, and that's a little hard for me. Okay, so Pat says, oh wait, I missed your comment. Someone who truly listens and understands you, absolutely. Honesty, loyalty, friendship. I love that you say that, friendship, right? I don't know any relationship that didn't start or shouldn't start with you building a great friendship, right? My husband's my best friend, and very much like best friends that are female that I have, goodness, you are each other's biggest supporter, biggest encourager, but they are the person who gets on your nerves the fastest because they know you so well. You know each other so well. You know the quirks. You know the things that rub each other the wrong way. Hey, Megan, how are you feeling? I hope you're feeling so much better. I love you. Laughter, yeah, you gotta laugh. I remember early on in my marriage with Brad, as we kind of got into like year 2 and 3. I remember us like sitting down and having like this talk after we had like an argument, we had a fight, and I remember him saying to me something that just really struck me. He said, we don't have fun together anymore, right? And I thought, we used to be really fun. Like I think back to like college when we would like, I would attempt to play basketball with my husband, and clearly he's very good at playing basketball. I just kind of played because it's like, my boyfriend plays basketball and I'll try to do something that he's interested in, those kind of things when it's like young love and all that jazz. But we used to have fun. We used to you go hiking and play. He introduced me to disc golf, which I had never even heard of before I had met my husband. And I don't know how I didn't know about it before because I love sports. Well, not all sports, but a lot of outdoor sports. But we used to have just a lot of fun together, playing games, board games. We even played video games together. Like, it was just a lot of fun. And I kind of realized that, we sort of lost, that fun, through being married and working together and trying to figure out ministry. And, into year, 2 and 3 of our marriage is when we had our son, Jackson. So now we're, trying to figure out how to be parents, too. And it's just, all the fun gets sort of sucked out of life, right? But that's something that we've really committed ourselves to in our marriage now, is having fun, and laughing. Yeah, absolutely, laughing. Besides my mom, my husband is my best friend also. See, there you go, right? Rough, but you'll survive. Oh, good. I'm praying for you, Megan. Oh my goodness. So, but I'm glad that you're here. I'm so excited. Yay. Okay, so anything else that you think makes the ideal marriage? I think, honesty, trust, I think kind of goes in that category with honesty as well. All those things you would think make a good marriage, or a good relationship. It doesn't have to necessarily be a marriage. It could just be, if you're dating or engaged or whatever your relationship looks like. You have an idea in your head of what you think it should look like. Now, my next question is, how do you react, or how have you reacted in times in your relationships? Hey, Judy, good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. You learn and grow together. Yes. And if you're not learning and you're not growing, that's a problem, right? You should constantly be growing and changing and developing in your relationships. Oh, such good stuff tonight. I love it. I don't want to get off on too many tangents, but okay. So we have an idea in our head of what an ideal relationship should look like, right? And we get those from many different areas of our life. Sometimes it's the relationships that we witness growing up, maybe parents or caregivers that are very important to us. We see the way that they interact in relationships, or maybe it's someone who really just took us under their wing. Maybe we didn't have, I know not everybody had maybe the most stable of parents, but maybe there was someone who came into your life that was like that figure of a parent for you. Or maybe we even get these sometimes idealized ideas. I don't even know if you can even say that, idealized ideas, but you know what I'm saying. Like, we have this idealistic version of what relationships should look like from media and television and movies and even music that we listen to. Like, love should just be all perfect and this is the way that it should be. But when we have that idea, however it's been developed in our life, when we have that idea of what an ideal relationship should look like, how do we react and what do we feel when reality does not match up to our ideals? So how do you feel? How do you react when this idea that you've built up of what the relationship should look like, or what you think you deserve in the relationship, or how it should function, doesn't work? And this, I'm not just talking about maybe relationships. Hey, Kimberly. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome. And I'm not just talking about maybe relationships that have failed in the past, because even in our relationships that we are maybe currently in, and like I've been married for 7 years now, there are still times that my husband does not meet the idea of what I think should be happening in our marriage. It's just part of life. We develop these ideas of what we think streams should look like, and then when they don't match up, how do you react to life? How do you react to those situations when things are not the way you think they should be? I'm curious to know. So let me hear your comments. I think one of my main reactions is I get really discouraged. And, oh, see it, look at it. We just literally said the same thing almost at the same time that you typed it, Teresa. Yeah, discouraged. And when I get discouraged, my mind automatically goes to, what did I do wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, maybe he's not meeting my expectations because I'm not somehow not meeting his expectations. Like, I'm not doing the right thing. Lost. Yeah, Pat. Like, well, where do I turn now? What do I do now? Right? Like, how do I figure out, like, we've obviously gotten ourselves into some kind of a hole, or like often people use the word rut. And now how do we get out of this, right? Like, where's the roadmap that takes us from, okay, here we are, and this is where we want to be, right? Yeah, absolutely. We can feel, I think, a whole host of emotions. We can feel like our significant other is a stranger. I don't know if you've ever had maybe that experience. Like, you just feel like you're, maybe not strangers, but maybe like roommates. Like, you're just kind of coexisting together. I know that we've had those moments in our own marriage, like where you just feel like you're going through the motions of, okay, here's this person, and, you know, we have our roles that we fulfill in our marriage, and this is the way things go, and you're just kind of like coexisting together, like, but you're not connecting. And that can feel really, really hard. It can feel like you're trying to, I think the best example that I can use is watching my daughter, Catherine. She is about to be 3 at the end of January, which I cannot believe. And she's so sassy, but she's so independent. You cannot help her do anything. She wants to do everything on her own. She doesn't need anybody's help, and you're not in charge of her. God help us when she's a teenager, because, well, I'm sure you all can imagine it's going to be nuts in this house. But she has these little wooden puzzles where it's like letters or numbers, or they're like little shapes, but each piece only goes in the spot that it's made for, like in those wooden puzzles. And it's not like a cardboard puzzle where you could like maybe shove them together and like pretend like they fit. Like, a wood puzzle is a wooden puzzle. It is not going to... Hey, Catherine! Oh my goodness, Catherine. I'm not talking about you, Catherine. I'm talking about my daughter, Catherine. But she would try with like all her might to shove this wooden puzzle piece, like this circle, into the square spot. And it's just not going to fit, because that spot is made for a circle. It's not made for a square. And you can try and try and try, but you're going to shove the wrong piece. You're never going to shove the wrong wooden piece into that spot. It's just not going to fit. And sometimes that's how it can sort of feel in our relationships when our expectations meet reality, or rather our expectations don't meet reality. And we're trying to shove something that's wooden, that's not going to break, it's not going to bend, it's not going to change in any way. And the only way that you would probably ever get that wooden piece to fit is by breaking it, okay? And that's what can happen in our relationships. We try and try and try so hard to make two things fit that just aren't fitting together. And the only way that you're ever maybe going to make it work is if you break the mold that the puzzle goes into. And that doesn't bode well for our relationships, right? We're talking about breaking relationships apart. And so I think there's a lot to be said about that and what we're going to see with Jacob and Rachel. There's a managing of expectations in this marriage. And there's also a managing in the way that they each have reacted and interacted with one another. So if you have your book, I'm looking at page 195. If you don't have this book and you have your Bible handy, we're actually looking at Genesis chapter 30, and starting right there at the first verse. And this, I'm going to read verses 30 and 31. 30, verse 1 and 2. Sorry. So this is Rachel talking, and she's talking to her husband Jacob. She says, "So she said to Jacob, 'Give me children.'" Okay, so first of all, like it's any of his say, right? Yeah, and the breaking point can be a very thin line. Yeah, absolutely. You'll never know that you've gone one step too far until all hell breaks loose, right? Rather than just, for lack of a better word, until all hell breaks loose, you never know until you've gone too far, right? But we don't want to get to that point, do we? So this is what she says. She says, "So she said to Jacob, 'Give me children.'" Like it's somehow his fault, or he has any say over this. Like, "Jacob, please give me children. You're giving Leah tons and tons and tons and tons of children, but you haven't given me anything." And Jacob's probably sitting there thinking, "Yeah, but I've given you all my love and all my affection and all my devotion. Is that not enough for you?" And she's like, "No." And then she kind of takes it one step further. So the second part of that says, "So she said to Jacob, 'Give me children or I'll die.'" Now, I don't mean to laugh, but she is a tad dramatic, okay? She's like, she reminds me of like my kids, like, "Oh, if I don't get this, I'm gonna die," right? My son, Jackson, sometimes he's a virtual learner, so it is sometimes a struggle to get him to sit at the computer, and he's like, he'll come up with every excuse why he can't sit there. "Oh, I have to go to the bathroom, I need a snack, I need a drink," and the other day he's like, "I'm thirsting to death." Like, it just reminds me of Jackson just having these moments of like, "Give me something to drink or I'm gonna die." And it is a little bit dramatic what she's saying, but there's also a little bit of truth to what she's saying too. So the author lets us in on a little bit of a cultural phrase that she's actually using here. So she doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to literally die. Like, she's not going to drop dead. She's not just gonna like walk outside and be like, "Oh, I'm dead, I'm gone because I don't have kids." In her culture, in the day and age when she was going through what she was going through, if you were not able to produce heirs in, I think, a reasonable amount of time, which clearly this has been a reasonable amount of time because her sister Leah has had, 5 children at this point? Let's see. Sorry. 4. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. She's had all these kids. And so Rachel's sitting here thinking, "Oh my gosh, I haven't been able to have any kids." And so in her culture, after a certain point of not being able to have children, you are considered dead to your culture. If that is like even possible. So this is what the author says. I actually want to read it for you, for those of you that maybe don't have the book. It says, "Since a woman without children was accounted as dead in her culture, goodness gracious, Rachel was not only jealous, but desperate. 'Give me sons, for if you don't, I'm a dead woman.' More evidence of her slightly bad girl nature, tossing out dire ultimatums. 'Give me what I want, or else.' We haven't worked out what else might be, but we're determined to go there if we have to." And what's the hubby's reaction? And this is where it comes into Genesis chapter 30, verse 2. And this is Jacob's response to her. "Jacob became angry with her and said, 'Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?'" And there's a couple things that are like, it's understandable, right? Here they already probably have the stress and the tension of not being able to have children, right? Here Jacob probably has the stress and the tension of not one but 2 wives, right? There is a reason that God designed marriage to be monogamous and not polyamorous, okay? I'm very fascinated by watching polygamist couples on television, like how that marriage dynamic works, and they all seem like they're just this big happy family where this one man has like 4, 5, 6 wives, and they talk about, "Oh, we're introducing a new wife to the family," and I'm thinking, over my dead body? Are you serious? Are you serious? Like, I cannot fathom in my mind how that works. And I'm not here to judge. I am not here to say that to cast judgment or disparages upon people that choose that lifestyle. But I am telling you that it is not for me, and I don't feel that it's biblical either. That God designed marriage to be between a man and a woman. To be like between two people, right? Not 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, right? That's just how I think that God designed it. He just designed it to be 2 people. Because listen, you're already dealing with 2 different lifestyles, 2 different sets of ideals. Like, we're already talking about the ideal relationships. You're already dealing with... My daughter's at the door. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, my daughter's going to join us here for a minute.
Your glasses.
Okay, all right.
Your glasses.
Okay.
Glasses.
Oh. Sorry, my daughter was standing at the door and crying, so you can say hi. Say hi, Catherine.
Hi. Hi.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Okay, don't fall. You can sit next to me.
Yeah.
So here you already have this difficult dynamic. They probably have, so they have the stress of not being able, sorry, this is life with kids. Auntie Megan says hi. Miss Pat says hi.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Okay, all right, no more highs. Oh, Teresa says hi. Say hi, Teresa.
Bye, Tisha.
Okay, you gonna listen to mommy now?
Yeah.
Okay, so here they have the stress. They're not able to have kids. Jacob's trying to balance being married to 2 different women who have 2 very different sets of expectations for him. I'm sure as a husband, his time is divided. He's trying to support 2 households financially, because we know that he's still working for his uncle Laban. And on top of that, now he has his wife, who he desperately loves, who is pulling further and further and further away from him, who's becoming more and more and more introverted and introspective, like pulling into herself. You ever had those moments where you're just like, you just pull away from the world, you know? And Jacob's trying desperately to do everything that he can to make his wife happy. There she goes. Okay, you gotta be quiet, okay? All right, she's gonna hide in the closet next to me. So imagine that perfect storm of stress, right? That is a lot of a burden to bear between 2 people. And for Jacob, in his defense, this is a lot of stress for him to manage as a person. I don't know that I would be able to manage things the way that he is. And so I give a lot of credit to what he says.
I don't hide.
Okay, go get daddy. He reminds Rachel in that moment, and I think it's so so fitting that he does. He says, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Right? Am I in the place of God? He you kind of sense a little bit of that desperation. Like, this is up to God. This is not up to me. Like, I almost imagine him saying, like, if it were up to me, if I could give you children tomorrow, I would do it, right? I would love for you to get pregnant. I would love for you to be able to have that gift of being a mother. Thank you, Catherine. You're going to see the closet go in the background. So I'm going to ignore it, so you just ignore it too. And enjoy the entertainment. So poor Jacob has all of this. And I'm not saying that Jacob is innocent in all of this, but he does provide us a good reminder. There are a lot of times that we want to throw the stress of life on everybody else. We want to blame everybody else when things don't go well, when things are going wrong, when things are not as we think they should be. If anybody's catching this feed, like,
Is she in here?
Yeah, she's in here. She's in the closet.
Sorry to interrupt. Catherine, come here.
There's Brad. He came to get Catherine.
I was wondering where she went.
She's playing in the closet.
Time for night nights. Say bye bye, mommy.
Say night night. We'll say night night to everybody. All right, night night. All the joys of having kids. I'm never going to apologize that Catherine or my kids come in, because we do life together, right? I'm sure that you all probably have pets or people or kids running in the background. You just get to see mine. But we come to this really interesting thing, is that when the stress of life really builds up. Unfortunately, it's human nature that we take that stress out on the people that are the closest to us. The people who we trust the most, who we love the most, who we care about the most, because they're the people that we surround ourselves and we allow people to be close to us. And just because you're not lashing out and yelling at someone doesn't mean that we're not taking it out on someone. If you're a person maybe like me, my go-to is to kind of retreat, like I said. Like I start to kind of build, to kind of build this wall up because I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, and the easiest thing to do is just kind of hide it away, right? Like build up the wall and keep people at an arm's length so that they can't hurt you when you feel vulnerable. Does that make sense? And then some people it's natural to like lash out, maybe in anger or frustration. And that's really what we kind of see Rachel doing here. She's upset and she's angry with God. And so she takes it out on Jacob, the person who cares for her and who loves her the most. And I think that's a reminder for us that frustrations in life are going to come. Stresses in life are going to come. It is part of being human. There is nothing that we could ever do besides, living in a utopian society where everything is perfect, or backtracking human nature and human history all the way back to Adam and Eve and hoping that we would be back in the Garden of Eden where there's this state of perfection. We're going to have stress. And the way that we're going to manage that stress is going to speak a lot about who we are to the people around us. And here's the really amazing thing that I want to share with you that I have come to understand in my own life and in my own walk with God, is that God can take it. Okay? That anger, that frustration, the way that you want to lash out, God can take it. He knows us intimately. He built us the way that we are. And so when we have to lash out, God will take it. And I'm not saying that there are not going to be moments that you're not going to take it out on people around you. I struggle with it all the time. I'm going to take it out on my husband. Sometimes I take it out on my kids when I'm frustrated and I haven't slept and I'm got 1.5 million things to do at work, and all I want to do is just enjoy my evening, but my kids want from me. It seems so easy to just snap at them and just say, stop! Like, I can't take it anymore, right? And is my kid going to remember or understand that mommy didn't sleep well last night and had a rough day at work and had a lot of things to get done and she's super stressed out? No, what my kids are going to remember is that mommy said, I've had enough, and I reacted in anger, right? And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm just telling you that it's a part of life. It's going to be a reality. But know that when the stress and the tension and the misery of life gets to the point where it's like, it's here, right? We're like barely head above water. God is there and ready to take it. He's there and ready to help us. Yeah, absolutely true. So we take it out on the wrong person. Often the person who doesn't deserve it or isn't even the object of the frustration or the stress, right? It's often the person we don't expect it to be. So fast forwarding Rachel's story a little bit, she decides to take a page out of the 4 women of her family, and she decides to send her servant. So she sends her servant Bilhah to now be not a second, not a third, or not a first, not a second, but a third wife to Jacob, right? This is not just, oh, I sent you my servant so that you can sleep with her and so that she'll get pregnant and I can have kids like via her. She then in effect becomes another wife. That's how it worked. This wasn't just like, this was a binding legal contract. This wasn't just like a servant. And not to say that she would enjoy some of the same privileges of her wives, the other wives, the true wives of Jacob, because she was a servant, but she was able to have children. And then if you can wrap your head around this is the craziness that happens in this family, okay? So Bilhah starts having kids, right? So through her, I can build a family too, right? So Jacob slept with her and she became pregnant and bore him a son. And then Rachel said, God has vindicated me and has listened to my plea to give me a son, because this she named him Dan. So now we have Dan. And then she has a second son, and they named him Naphtali. So through this whole situation, you have Leah over here who has her 4 sons. Now you have Bilhah who has 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali. And would you believe it, Rachel's satiated for a while. She's happy for a while because now Bilhah has given her some sons that they kind of like co-parent together, which is very strange. Well, strange for this dynamic, not strange for today because people co-parent all the time. It's the reality of life now, co-parenting. And you can either do it really well or you do it really bad. And so Leah, who already has 4 sons of her own, starts to get her own jealousy kick going. And so what does Leah do? She sends her servant Zilpah as now a 4th wife for Jacob. So Jacob, in all of his, I don't even know what the word is, all of his stress with just these 2 women, he now has 4 wives. He has Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. He has 4 wives, okay? Now, Zilpah gets pregnant and has a son. Now, at this point, Rachel still doesn't have any kids, right? So then Leah says, what good fortune? So she named him Gad, which is what his name means, good fortune. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a 2nd son. Then Leah has said, so how happy am I? The women will call me happy. So she named him Asher, which means happiness. Which, by the way, I really loved the name Asher. Like, if Catherine was going to be a boy, I really liked the name Asher. Because we have Colton, Jackson, and Asher. But we have Colton, Jackson, and Catherine. Or Jackson, Colton, and Catherine, rather, if I say them in order. Right? So, all of this happens, right? So, Leah gets her own jealous kick going. So, she decides to send her servant now. So, Jacob has, let's see, 4 boys through Leah. 2 boys through Bilhah, 2 boys through Zilpah. And we know, if you know anything about the history of the Bible, Jacob has 12 sons. That's why we call it the 12 sons of Israel and the 12 tribes of Israel, because at one point God does change Jacob's name from Jacob to Israel, which is why they're called the sons of Israel. My nephew's name was Asher Leos. That's right! It is! See, I should have known that. I do remember that now that you're saying that. Little Asher. He was so cute. Oh my goodness. And all that hair. Oh, all that hair. I love when babies have like a full head of hair. None of my babies did. They were all like baldest cue balls. And poor little Catherine, she's only just starting to get like a little tuft of hair that I can put in a ponytail. So eventually, Rachel starts having children. The author calls it a blessing from heaven. If you're looking at Genesis 30:17, she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son, right? And she named him Issachar. And a 6th son. Leah bore him a 6th son. Then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons. She named him Zebulon. And finally, sorry, so those other 2 sons, I said Rachel, but they were Leah's sons. So Leah has 6 boys altogether, and then there are 2 boys from Bilhah, 2 boys from Zilpah. And then God remembered Rachel. So Genesis 30:22, God remembered Rachel, and he listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and she said, God has taken away my disgrace. So she named him Joseph and said, may the Lord add to me another son. And then so she has a 2nd son after Joseph, and she names him Benjamin. And he becomes the youngest of all. And so, and then at one point, after Jacob has worked his 7 years for having married Rachel, they go back to the land of Canaan, and they go back home. And they are going to be starting their new life together as a family. As a family of 4 wives and 12 children altogether, 12 boys. Which I cannot imagine. I struggle sometimes to even feed 2 little boys and a little girl who sometimes can eat more than the boys. But I could not imagine trying to provide for 12 boys and 4 wives. Goodness gracious. But there are some lessons that we can learn from Rachel. And that's kind of what I want to wrap up with in her story tonight. We can grow old gracefully. And I don't just mean, hey John, good to see you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. The author doesn't just mean here growing old in age. It means growing in our lives, growing in our walk gracefully. There's something that's really wonderful about learning and going through those hard lessons of life. And I think that those hard lessons of life that we take with us they can either do one of two things. They can help us grow. They can help us develop into better people, or they can help us become, or they cause us to become bitter people. Where those hard places of life become a place where we're stuck and we're rooted in that spot and we never move forward and never move past that point in life. And that does not, that's not growing gracefully. That's growing begrudgingly. Does that make sense? Like, I'll grow old and you just grow bitter, right? You don't grow up. You just grow on and you just become very bitter and very calloused by life. And there's a reminder for us in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind," right? There's a reason that we set New Year's resolutions. A new year starts a new chapter for us. And if you're anything like me, you're like, 2021 cannot come fast enough, right? If you're like me, you're already done with 2020. Like every day is like, Happy New Year. I saw a really funny meme on Facebook that said, when 2021 comes, nobody better be shouting a Happy New Year. Everybody better be raising their glass and shouting Jumanji. If you've ever seen those movies, you'll know how, like, what that means. But, yeah, shout Jumanji to end this level of the game. Because 2020 has been crazy. It's brought on a lot of changes. It's brought on a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of challenges, I think, for all of us. Whether you kept a job or lost a job, whether you know someone that was affected and got sick or you didn't. It's changed a lot of how we interact with each other. I mean, I could be doing this Bible study, sitting around a table, having coffee and snacks and, you know, hugging each other when we have those hard moments. And, you know, that's not a reality right now. Like, we're doing this electronically, and I covet this. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong. But there's something about being able to be together that you just miss. And yeah, absolutely, you're scared to see what 2021 holds. You know what was really funny? My office manager asked me if I wanted a calendar. He's like, "Oh, we have 2021 calendars." And I said, "I don't want one until somebody shows me a trailer. Like, I'm not buying a calendar for 2021 until I see a trailer." It's like going to the movies. I'm not going to invest until I know what 2021 has to hold. But it's weird, right? Yeah, 2020's been this, like, trial by fire. It's been a really testing time. It's been stressful, I mean, to say the very least. I know that's kind of putting it in very simplistic terms. But we can either grow through this experience of 2020 with all that it has brought, and we can take the challenges as they come and learn to develop and grow through them, or we can stop. We can deadhead and slam into a wall, right? And then keep hitting the same wall and hitting the same wall and hitting the same wall with all of our frustrations about how things are different and how things have changed and why I can't have things the way that I want them, right? And that's like insanity, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. That's what the definition of insanity is. But there is so much more that God has for us. I believe that there's so much growth that God has for us in this year. There is so much that has really been taken away. I know for me as a person, I was a person who, like, had a really busy list, like a really busy schedule. Outside of my ministry, outside of work related things. Like, I work for the Salvation Army, but we're also pastors at the Salvation Army, and this is what I'm doing now is even part of our ministry. But I had a really packed schedule, a really full schedule, and I was like, had to be doing something all the time. Like, I was never stagnant and like standing still. But I've kind of been forced through 2020 to spend more time at home with my family and with my kids and find more creative ways to do things and to build memories with my kids when I can't take them on a vacation, or I can't, for a while we couldn't go out to parks, right? You couldn't go to the park and take your kids to the park, or, like, even to have play dates and that kind of thing. There was a lot of stuff that just couldn't happen for my kids, but these are precious moments in 2020 that I wouldn't have traded for anything, that I've been able to spend with my family, that I've been able to, even for a while when our church wasn't able to reopen yet, I had the opportunity to visit one of our partner churches in the area, Arbor House, and to attend their services and to be ministered to, and to not have to be like the pastor on a Sunday morning, but to be someone in the congregation and to be able to worship without the fear of, if any of you that go to our church on Sunday, you know, like my kids running up on the stage and trying to bang on the piano keys while I'm trying to lead worship, you know, just those things that are just part of having kids and part of doing life as a family. But it was interesting. It was a nice change of pace for me. And memories that I really look back to those moments as being really precious moments. Yeah, and I love this other lesson. Jealousy has two sides. We talked about this a lot last week. We talked about jealousy. That as jealous as Rachel was of Leah, who could have all of these children, Leah was just as jealous because Jacob loved Rachel and didn't love her, right? The grass always looks greener on the other side. I know we gave the example of like, oh, my neighbor just drove home with a new car, right? Okay, but maybe your neighbor is in debt because they're driving that car home. It may look nice, but you don't know what the other side of that story looks like. You don't know what the other side of that circumstance looks like. So just as sometimes as we are jealous of other people, people may be just as jealous of us, right? But I think that's where it comes in that we take those moments to get to know each other and to learn more about each other's life circumstances and really have open conversation about our beliefs, right? I know that Black Lives Matters is a big topic in our culture, in our society today, and as I think it should be. But I hear often people listen to only half of the conversation, right? They listen to a point until they either become offended or they don't fully engage in the conversation, right? And I often think how much more productive and how much more unified would we be as a people, as a culture, as a country, if we could just stop to listen, to hear the voices of other people, that we could communicate with each other openly. And I'm not just saying, not just Black Lives Matters, gender equality all the time. I know that's a big conversation that I get in with people. Gender equality, same-sex marriage. There's a lot of conversation that people just shut the door on. And they say, oh, this is my belief, this is what I have, and there's no more discussing this. Like, this is what I know to be right, and what you are doing or who you are is wrong, and they just shut the book on the conversation. And what I want to say to that, too, is if you look at the life of Christ throughout Scripture, even especially throughout the New Testament, he was the last person to be shutting the door on conversation. Jesus had dinner. I mean, went to people's homes and had intimate conversation and meals with people who were from every single wrong side of the tracks imaginable. But that's how he built relationship with people. He met them where they were at and said, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about life. Let's do life together. I mean, that's literally what he did with his disciples. He said, found 12 guys. He said, come, follow me. For 3 years. And they got to see Jesus live and act in person for 3 years. And that's really tremendous. Oh, and I love this one. Human love is never enough. Now that probably sounds really terrible maybe to hear. Sorry, my eyes are so itchy. It is allergies season. Tell you what. Human love is never enough. Like, I often use the example of, like, if you ever done this with your hands and, like, tried to scoop up water, or done this, I don't know if you can see my hands because I'm kind of doing, like, and you scoop up water, right? You can hold a good amount of water in your hands, but the water is going to leak out, like, eventually, right? Like, if you ever, like, you can usually scoop up enough to, like, I'm going to wash my face off, get the makeup off, all that kind of stuff, right? But the water leaks out. And I often use this example when I'm doing, like, premarital counseling, right? This is, like, the example of human love, right? Like, you have one part in the relationship and the other part of the relationship together. And you come together, and you fit well together, right? And you can hold water, right? You can hold love. There can be love in that relationship, right? But over time, eventually, the water's gonna leak out. It's gonna find little holes. It's gonna find little cracks, and it's gonna leak out. What I like to say is that God fills in the gaps, okay? We love each other the very best that we can as human beings, but human beings are broken by our sinful nature. And God's love is perfect. Scripture tells us that perfect love drives out every fear. God's love is ultimately perfect. And his love, when we allow it to invade our lives, so if you have two people who are allowing God to love them, and you are loving each other through God's love fills in the gaps. It fills in the cracks and doesn't let any of the love seep out. Okay, does that make sense? That's like the best example that I can ever think of when I kind of talk about this. Human love only goes so far, but that doesn't mean that we can't love each other as Christ asks us to love, because when God loves us and loves through us, we're able to do that for each other. And last but not least, how good and pleasant it is when sisters live together in unity. And obviously in this particular chapter, we're talking about two literal sisters, right? Rachel and Leah were blood relative sisters. They were siblings. And we can see what happened probably to their relationship as sisters for the rest of their lives. I mean, Scripture doesn't go in depth into talking too much about the relationship with Rachel and Leah, but I can't imagine that it was one that was easy by any stretch of the imagination. It was probably very difficult.
Mommy, good night.
Okay, can you give me just a minute? I'm about to wrap up, okay? You can say hi to everybody. Say good night. Good night.
Good night.
But I want to bring it, I guess, for us personally. Like, let's talk about us as sisters, okay? Like, us as a group of sisters. Like, all of you watching, and think of your girlfriends and your actual sisters and the women in your life, right? I know I've said this phrase before, and I will say it again. Fix each other's crowns, okay? Fix each other's crowns. My sister-in-law, Megan, just went to a wedding last weekend, and she sent me pictures of the bride. And I have to tell you something, because she told me she had like a crown, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, like a crown. Like a crown. I was thinking, oh, like gaudy, but it really wasn't. So she sent me pictures of this bride that she had taken with the bride. And I just looked at it and I thought, oh my gosh, it's like, it was so pretty. Like, her dress was perfect and her hair was gorgeous. And like the crown just looked like it fit. Like, if you didn't know who this was, I would have honestly thought that she was like royalty from goodness only knows where. Because she was just so gorgeous and it just fit so perfectly. Like, it wasn't gaudy. It wasn't like chintzy. It was beautiful. Okay. It was spot on. Like, I wish like I could have had like the audacity to like do a crown the way that she did it, but she did it, and she did it well. She was living her extra life. I loved every second of it. But it just kind of brought that idea to my mind, right? Like, here I was as a person who didn't even know this woman at all, and I'm already thinking in my head, oh my gosh, a crown, that's god awful. Like, how would you wear that like at a wedding, whatever. And I had an opportunity to like, I could have fixed her crown, right? And I know she doesn't know me, and I don't know her, but it's the principle of it, right? We can either be tiara polishers, or we can be mudslingers, okay? There is nothing that makes you look pretty. There's nothing about us that makes us look pretty when we are slinging mud at other people in our lives, especially other women, right? Our culture and society has come quite a far ways in 2020 for equality of women and all that falls in that category, but we have a ways to go, okay? We still have a ways to go in this country, and in our culture and in our society. And we are not going to get anywhere by climbing over ourselves, by putting other women down. I'm going to be one of the biggest supporters that says, no, fix each other's crowns. Be each other's biggest supporters. Because each and every one of us know how hard it is to be a woman in general. To be a woman in any stage of life. And hi, Dawn. I'm so glad that you're able to catch some of this. It's good to see you. We need to fix each other's crowns. Be each other's biggest cheerleaders, each other's biggest supporters. Because life is tough. But when we do life together and we do life with God together, really amazing and tremendous things can happen. Yeah, we have to stick together. Absolutely, as a whole, we have to stick together, right? I'm not putting any men down at all, so don't hear me saying that. I'm just saying that there's this, I'm sure men feel a special kinship with other men, right? Like, there are things that men deal with that we can't identify with as women, but there are things that we deal with as women that only other women can identify with. And so let's support each other and let's encourage each other. I've really, really enjoyed this book a lot, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to go walk through it with you. Next week, we are going to, negativity doesn't get us so far, adjust each other's crowns. Yes! I feel like I should buy everyone, like, a tiara and, like, send it to you with our Really Bad Girls book, and then you can wear them when we get on for our live every week. You can wear your tiaras. If you do, if I buy tiaras, I want to see everybody wearing them, and you better send me a picture. I want to see it so bad. But next week, we're going to wrap up this book. I know that we've gone on a little later tonight than what we normally would, but I really wanted to give this chapter some justice and have good conversation with you. So thank you, everybody, for participating. Know that I'm praying for you. Know that I love you. And every time your names pop up in the feed, even if I don't see it, I go back and I write everybody's name down. I have a prayer journal that I write all of your names down in. And Teresa, you just made my book last week, so I've been praying for you since last week, and then I got to meet you, which is so awesome, so I'm so excited. But you're all in my prayer journal, and if you ever have anything that is, like, really specific and you want me to be praying for, please, if you're, like, not concerned about it being, like, if it's not too private, put it always in the comments. I'll wear it with pride. Awesome. I think I really might too, because it's like Halloween. I could find some tiaras on Amazon and have them mailed to all of you. That would be awesome. I'd wear mine too. Sorry. But if you do have prayer concerns, you can always put them in the comments. You can message them privately through our Facebook page. The messages that you send through our Facebook page come directly to myself, my husband, and one of our administrators. So those are the only people that see the messages that come through. So if you want to share a prayer request, if you want it to be personal and you don't want it to be through the Facebook page, you can follow add me as a friend on Facebook. You can see my name posted there under the video. Find my Facebook page, add me as a friend, and then you can send me direct messages through my Facebook Messenger of any prayer requests that you have. But I want to be praying for the things that are concerns for your heart and the things that weigh heavy on you. One that I just want to mention tonight is be in prayer for Shirley C. Those of you that have been a part of this for a while, you know who Shirley C is. I don't want to release her last name without her permission. But she's having a chemotherapy treatment again tomorrow, so just be in prayer for her. That it would go smoothly, no issues, no side effects from the chemo, so just pray for her. And pray for my sister-in-law Megan. She had an eye procedure done today, so just keep her in prayer as she's recovering and getting better from that. But I love you all. I hope you're having a great night and enjoy the rest of your evening. Get some rest, okay? Take care of yourself. And this is what I'm telling you to do. So listen, get close to the camera. I'm getting close to the camera. Do something for you tonight. Whether it's eat a piece of chocolate or, oh yes, and Mary's hand surgery. Thank you, Pat, for reminding me of that. Mary S. She's having hand surgery. She's having carpal tunnel surgery, so we need to pray for her as well. Definitely keep her in your prayers. Thank you for reminding me of that, Pat. I appreciate that. Pat keeps me focused on things. But do something for you tonight, whether it's take a bath or bust out that hand lotion or that lotion that you love that smells so good and make your husband rub it on your back or your feet or something. I don't know. Go watch a guilty pleasure television show. Like, The Bachelorette is back on, okay? Just gonna put a shameless plug out there. I love The Bachelorette and The Bachelor. That's like my guilty TV that I like to watch. Go watch that. Go do something for you tonight and enjoy yourself because you deserve it. God thinks you're worth it. I think you're worth it. So treat yourself like you're worth it. Next week, we'll get back together at 7 o'clock. We're just going to kind of wrap up this book. If you joined us a little later in the book, that's okay. We can still have great conversation together. and we'll be wrapping up the book, and then we will be getting into the Really Bad Girls. So I'm going to be sending you a book if you've asked for one, and if you weren't on tonight, but I know you're normally on, I'll check in with you maybe via text to make sure that you do want a book for the next series. So with that, have a nice night, good night, and I'll see you next week. Bye!